question, and I think a good story, and I enjoy telling it. And I'm here in the San Francisco area, near Silicon Valley, where so many businesses start. And not that I compare myself with that, but businesses refer to the origin story, which is how their businesses start. And in so many cases, businesses don't start with a plan to start a business. I mean, Google was just some Stanford students, putting servers in their dorm rooms, in their closets, and coming up with ideas. And, Airbnb was some kids in San Francisco that there was a conference in town, and they put up some flyer or something on Craigslist that people could stay in their apartment, and businesses grew. So again, not to be grandiose, I have a small enterprise, but it started kind of inadvertently. What happened, I finished my doctoral studies, was a psychologist, and had the chance to further my studies with an existential psychologist, probably not well known in Greece, named James Bugenthal. Mm-hmm. Very talented, skilled therapist, teacher, written some influential books. I don't think they were ever translated in Greece. But he was a very talented therapist, and in working with him, we would also do demonstrations, we would do role plays, we would do personal therapy as demonstrations, and he was 80 years old, and there was a group of us, and we kept saying, we need to get him on camera so other people who don't have a chance to study with him will see his work. So we kept talking about it, and he was 80 years old and not getting any younger as these things go. And so finally a friend and I found some clients to volunteer and got some camera, hired a videographer, and we taped some sessions. And this was the days of actual tape, and we made some VHS videotapes. And, I wasn't planning to start a business. We just got some people to agree to buy some copies in our group. And then I heard that he was going to be speaking at this big conference. It's every 4 or 5 years in the U.S. called the Evolution of Psychotherapy. It's still going on now every 4 years, and managed to get a table there, and my father was speaking, so I got some tapes of his, and ended up getting some other tapes of some other presenters, and went there to sell it just to really pay back the cost of producing the video, and found that there was a big demand of people, of therapists, wanting the chance to view top therapists doing therapy. And this was right as the internet was just starting out, and one thing led to another, and I started producing other videos and finding other videos that had been produced, but very hard to find before the internet. If we can remember what that was like, So that's how it got started, and that was, 22, 23 years ago now. And since then, we've just continued to produce videos, as well as find videos that others have produced, and put them in one place, and went from VHS to DVD to streaming. And now we have over 300 videos of, again, the top therapists of all different orientations, all different approaches, modalities, group therapy, individual therapy, family therapy, couples therapy, addiction treatment, all in one place. And then we added articles and interviews and cartoons and blogs, all on psychotherapy.net. What I've been pleasantly surprised by is clients. We've always not had a difficulty finding clients willing to be on camera. And of course we get their permission, and, one thing that, therapists are often, a little uneasy, or they think, therapy is a private thing. But, we are a unique profession. Almost every other profession in the world, if you want to learn how to do something, if you want to learn how to be a dentist and do fillings, if you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, if you're a dancer, if you're an athlete, if you're a musician, you learn, from mentoring, from seeing skilled people at work, and then watching you and giving you feedback. And we've had this very crazy, very inefficient training process. Traditionally, we go to classes, we read books, we read articles, we discuss things, we go to workshops. Then we go to our private therapy session. Then, in training, a week later, we meet with our supervisor and we say, yes, well, I had this client and he said this and I said this, and what do you think? And a friend and a student of mine, Tony Ruminier, recently wrote a book called Deliberate Practice in Psychotherapy. I highly recommend. And he kind of makes fun of this process and says it would be like if you were an art student. You go to your art teacher and say, I did this painting. It had a lot of blue in it. Do you think I put too much blue? without the teacher seeing your painting. It's crazy, and it's inefficient. It's not the way to get trained. So videos are one way to see experts working. You can learn so much. It's not just what they say, it's how to say it. It's the body language, it's the pacing. Of course, I also think people should have their own sessions video recorded and watched live via Skype or, Zoom, whatever. There's many technologies, but I do think it's one part of increasing the skills of beginning as well as, intermediate and advanced therapists, is to keep watching others and have them watch you. Well, I know I've been doing therapy, 30 years now. Every time I produce a new video, I learn something, I think, for one, it's good to have as broad an exposure to different practitioners and different theories and different approaches as possible. So even if you think, I'm a CBT therapist, or I'm an existential therapist, or I'm a, interpersonal therapist, or I'm a, emotionally focused couples therapist, learn from other people, because it's not just the theory of what they do. In fact, the research has shown repeatedly over and over again for 50 years, the approach is not the deciding factor. It's the non-specific factors. It's the therapeutic alliance. It's the client factors. So, it's good to expose yourself widely, and you can do that by reading, of course, and attending workshops, but you learn so much by watching therapists, because you also learn how they bring themselves into the sessions. They may think, what I'm doing is effective is because of my approach, but it may also be how they engage with clients, how they support the client, their tone of voice, how they are sensitive to the client's facial expressions, how they laugh together, how they use humor. And so there's so many non-verbal components to therapy that I think you just cannot help by learning a great deal by watching therapists in action. And so I think that videos is certainly not the only way to improve your skills, but I think it's a very engaging and effective way to learn not only the theories, but also how each therapist finds a way to bring their own personality, their own voice, their own humanity into their work. Yeah, I think by modeling, by seeing how different therapists bring themselves into the work. And I do think that's a developmental task of therapists. When we start out, we're oftentimes, in some ways, what we learn in our professional education is to restrict ourselves. Well, we have to have boundaries. We have to do this. We have to do that. And sometimes it can have some negative impact, is that when people can be very stiff when they start out, and stifle their natural humanity, and their ability naturally to connect with people and empathize. I think over time that's a developmental task for all therapists, is to find a way to bring themselves, their natural personality, their humanity, their concern, and merge that with the techniques and the theories and the knowledge they have, but to ultimately bring themselves into their work so they can make a natural connection with the clients they work with. Yes, well, that's been one of the great things about what I've done, is I've had a chance to work with many great therapists, and so many of them, certainly, as I mentioned, Jim Bugenthal is an important mentor and a trainer of mine, and we do have some of his videos. Certainly, of course, my father, I've learned from him greatly over the years. I did spend 1 year at Stanford where we had a chance to do some work together and lead groups together, but, through, of course, informal conversations over the years and reading and making videos with him, he's taught me a great deal. Certainly, one of his big contributions is how to work what he calls in the here and now. He built his group model around that, but then he transitioned and took those same ideas. Maybe it was not often so explicitly stated, but in working with individual clients, using that same concept of the here and now to be able to talk with the clients in a very present and real way. How are things going between you and I? What's working? What's not working? That's something that I think therapists have a hard time learning to do well. It's not easy, because it requires us to let go of that kind of mask of being the professional. And it's different than the kind of psychoanalytic transference interpretation where you're keeping a distance and commenting on them. It's really bringing yourself eye to eye and saying, I notice, when I say things, you seem very concerned about pleasing me, or you seem irritated by what I said, or, there are many examples, but that's been a great, there are many things I've learned from him, but that's certainly something very important. I've learned from Sue Johnson. We've done a lot of work with emotionally focused therapy, and she brings a lot of that present focus to helping clients turn to each other and express how they're feeling about each other right here and right now. And I'm a colleague and become a friend of mine, and I've made friends in this work. Reed Wilson, who's an anxiety specialist, and from pretty much a CBT approach, but he has his own kind of twist on things. And I don't identify as the CBT therapist, but I've found many of his concepts and approaches very helpful. Peter Levine is a masterful somatic therapist. Otto Kernberg, a psychoanalyst, and I'm not a psychoanalyst or psychoanalytically trained, but his work of transference-focused therapy is also very much in the here and now, of attending to what's happening in the moment between therapists and clients. So that's certainly a commonality that I found among many of the therapists I consider most highly skilled, is that they find a way to make the therapy alive. They're not just letting clients tell stories about what happened, not just staying in their head formulating ideas, but they're finding a way to make something happen in the moment of therapy and have the client have a new experience in the therapy. Irv Polster, Gestalt therapist, master at this. A masterful old video is called Psychotherapy with the Unmotivated Patient with Client. Brilliant. So that's certainly a commonality that I see among skilled therapists, is helping therapists have a new experience. You know, if a client is just repeating a story or just learning on a kind of cognitive, intellectual basis about themselves, I don't think that's enough. Yeah. Well, he's right now, he's certainly getting older. He just had his 87th birthday. If I got that right. So he's slowing down physically, but mentally he's still very alert. He's, he has a lot of integrity. One of the things I really respect about him. He's, he could have certainly, a lot of people are branding their therapies. There's so many therapies, the ABC therapy or DEF therapy, and building an empire around that. And, I respect people who are, I'm a businessman as well as a therapist, so I respect people like yourself, who business is a creative enterprise to take an idea and find a way to bring it out to others. And he's certainly been very successful in his work, but he's never been interested in building an Irvin Yalom model of therapy. In fact, he's been very explicit that, existential psychotherapy, he's always said in his books and in his talks, he's never thought of it as a school of therapy, as a technique of therapy. Mm-hmm. He sees it as a lens, a way, it's a way of looking at human phenomena, and it's a way of looking at the issues that we all as humans face. So I guess that's one thing I respect greatly about him. He's never been wanting to just build a brand of therapy to profit from that. He's a man of, he's interested in ideas. He's interested in the human experience. He's interested in philosophy, and he's very intellectually curious. He's not, even though he first got known for his book on group therapy, he's more of a private person. He's not a big group person. He more likes to, relate one-on-one in small groups. He's I think by temperament, a little bit shy, but very easy and warm to engage with. Sure. Well, some of that is I think, adding on to what I've said already. I think, let's see, where to begin. Well, I think to, expose yourselves widely to different approaches, finding a teacher or a mentor. I mean, I felt like I really started to learn about therapy when I finished my studies and had a chance to study with Hugenthal, have a connection with my father, started looking, working with other people. So find a mentor, a teacher that you admire, that you feel comfortable with, and find some way to continue to be able to really develop yourself. I mean, it's a lifetime journey. So have a consultation group. It can be a peer-led group, can be a professionally led group. Discuss your cases, have a chance to practice skills. Again, as I said before, we're the only profession where we typically don't see other people work and have other people see us. So the technology is there now. And what we found, the therapists are often worried about their clients being resistant to being recorded. But in most cases, they're not. If you tell your clients, I am dedicated to continuing to improve my skills and to be as good as I can be. I mean, if you're a tennis player, the best players have the best coaches and get the most coaching. So, video record. You put your iPhone or smartphone or computer, and whatever your purpose is, if you're going to get some live supervision or peer consultation, or just to watch yourself. Again, I mentioned my friend Tony Rumanier, in his book Deliberate Practice in Psychotherapy, he recommends watching your own sessions. Mm-hmm. Notice when you get uncomfortable, you know, what makes you uncomfortable? Is it with a client who's depressed? Is it a client that is powerful and you're worried is judging you? Watch it. See what your expression does. See what you're uncomfortable and try to understand that. Get consultation. You know, most clients are very happy to have you record them for such a purpose. So get as much consultation as you can. Watch other therapists. You know, grow emotionally. You know, whether that's in your own therapy. Certainly all therapists that are serious about their craft should have some individual therapy, should have some group therapy. Work on yourself. You are your tool. So those are some thoughts I have.
Exactly.
And it's a lifelong learning. Don't get complacent. And if you're in private practice, you know, I think the biggest risk is isolation. I think, looking back, I spent too many years really in too much isolation. So it's an isolating business. You know, you're spending time one-on-one with a client. It's very intimate, but it's also isolating in some ways. So have consultation groups, you know, one or more, you know, get supervision, talk to your colleagues. You don't do it all alone.